Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Dear listener, welcome to Kardec Radio. Today we're going to talk about physiology of our thoughts. Do you think fear can actually attract negativity? Is it possible that our thoughts are so powerful they can create our own reality? These and many other questions will be answered here at Kardec Radio. Spiritism has a lot to tell regarding our thoughts. Allan Kardec, in the book Genesis, published in 1868, in a chapter about photography of the thought, Kardec tells us that when we think about something, it is real. It creates living images, what he mentioned as, he coined the term, thought forms, meaning we think, we create, and then if we keep thinking over and over again, the quantity, the frequency of those thoughts are going to sooner or later materialize in our lives. Because he explains, the thoughts will be condensing its molecules in our spiritual body and thus creating the very situations in our lives that we are attracting. So only Spiritism explains the mechanisms, and here we are in this very program today to share with you the ins and outs of our thoughts here at Kardec Radio today. André Luiz himself wrote a book, Mechanisms of Mediumship, and which is not yet in English but soon to be published. In this book, he dedicates a whole chapter to mental currents, mental waves, etc. We're going to tell this and much more here at Kardec Radio, and you can ask us any questions live by either calling in at 858-769-4705, or you can also log on to blogtalkradio.com/Kardec Radio and live make your comments and share your insights here at the chat room, or send us your email at kardecradio.com. We have a contact form and you can send us your comment or question and even a suggestion. And we're very grateful to all those who have been donating to Kardec Radio. Everything you donate will go to the new projects of making everything better for you, of broadcasting more programs, and making sure that everything reaches out to more and more people around the world. After all, we are in much more than 61 countries around the world, and we are happy to share this with you. Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul. Right now, we're going to stream to you a message by the Spirit Doctor, André Luiz. He talks about the 10 rules for self-improvement. And after that message and a break, we'll be back with you to talk about the physiology of our thoughts. Think about it. Do we really attract negativity by the way we think? Is it possible to change our thoughts? How so? So this and much more here today at Kardec Radio.
Ten Commandments for Self-Improvement, André Luiz. Number 1. Decrease your needs and increase your concessions. Number 2. Intensify your work and reduce the share of wasted time. Number 3. Elevate your ideas and repress your impulses. Number 4. Release the present individual in you towards Jesus and imprison the one of the past that still lives in you. Number 5. Watch your gestures and understand the gestures of others. Number 6. Persevere in the noble study, recognizing in life the sacred school for our ascent to God. Number 7. Judge yourself and forgive indiscriminately. Number 8. Speak with humility, listening intently. Number 9. Meditate constructing and pray serving. Number 10. Trust in the eternal love and fulfill your daily obligations that He assigned to you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light, Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. They will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritus and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritus Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritus Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
Well, dear listener, welcome again to Kardec Radio. And today we're going to talk about physiology of our thoughts. Yes, many people ask us, is it possible that fear attracts negativity? Is it possible that what we think we actually create and materializes in our life? Oh, yes, it is. If you study the book by Allan Kardec, Genesis, which you can buy at odysseyofamerica.com, you will find that the very explanation of the fact that when we think, thoughts are matter, and they will be creating these living images that can be materialized. How does that happen? André Luiz explains that through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, especially in a book titled Mechanisms of Mediumship. It's not in English yet, but on its way for sure. Right now, let's talk about the dynamics of our thought. What is it? The physiology of our thoughts. It is the study, the interactions of the basic elements of thought with its surroundings. André Luiz explains that our thoughts are inside the thoughts of the Creator. So we are co-creators, beginning with our thoughts. No wonder when we think bad things, we feel bad, because we are going against the flow of the Creator's thoughts, which is only beauty, harmony, and love. So changing our lives begin in our thoughts. When we think, we are co-creating, because our thoughts actually, the elemental matter of them begin in the thought of the Creator. So if we change the loving flow, the harmonious flow, the healthy flow of the thoughts of the Creator by co-creating negative thoughts, we suffer. We create diseases for this very reason. This is because thought is a mental electromagnetic force. What does that mean? It means that it is created in the mind, it has electrical components and magnetic ones, meaning we think and we are emitting, sending particles, and we are attracting like particles, to the point that André Luiz explains to us that our thoughts are actually composed by particles that have vibratory conditions. He talks about mental corpuscles, corpuscular formations that has atomic differences, positive and negative charges. And our aura, our aura, people talk a lot about our aura. The aura, or the vital halo, as we call it in Spiritism, is composed of subtle atomic currents of our thoughts that are habitual to us. So when we think, we create the very energy field that is around us. Which means, if you think beautiful things, you gain. If you think bad things, you lose. If people do bad things, it's their problem. If we accept them, it's our problem. Joana de Angelis talks often about this and recommends to us the bad things that people do, it's theirs. It's bad for them. But the things that we do, the bad things we do, it's bad for us. So it's worthwhile making efforts to create a constant and consistent pattern of thinking positively, creating this habit. And you know, dear listener, habits are created. How do we create habits? By creating that consistent behavior every day. So we need at least like 40 days in consistent training to start establishing the first steps of a habit. This means we all need, to find a great mechanism to create habits of creating beautiful thoughts. That's why many studies are already pointing out to the direction, as says positive psychology, that as we think positively, our lives just unfold in positive events. Try it. It's worthwhile. Plus, Andrea Luiz explains to us that these forces, these currents of thoughts that are animating our aura, they are driven by our will. Can you believe this? So isn't that true that there is this old saying, where there is a will, there is a way? And now we know why. Leon Denis, in the book Here and Hereafter, explains to us everything about will. And he says, will is the driving force of the soul. So we need to strengthen our will. And I tell you one thing that can block the flow of our will: melancholy. In all those times in which we keep meditating about the past in this life or previous lives, and you're like, oh, I miss that so much, oh my God. And you know what the Spirit Georges said in the Gospel According to Spiritism regarding it? He said, don't go there. Don't go there, because that's going to make your will weaker. And if your will is weaker, everything else is going to be bad for us. So don't go there. Just let it go. Just like the music in Frozen. Let it go, let it go. Really, let us really let go. Let go of the negative thoughts. Even the good things that were past. Create more beautiful things in the present. We are not, spending time in the past. Emmanuel, in one of his messages, through Chico Xavier, in a book that is yet to be published in English, Ceifa de Luz, he mentions in a chapter that our past is just the rear mirror in our lives. We should focus, as when we are driving, what's coming ahead. And the past is just like a small reference, just so we keep on marching steadily, learning from the past, but never stuck on the past. Okay? Now, since thought is mental matter, then the Spirit Andrea Luiz explains to us that this mental matter is the subtle instrument of our will. So, dear listener, let us think about this. How is our will doing? How is it going in your life? How are you strengthening your will? You need to strengthen it in your thoughts, in your habits. By creating thoughts of positive things, we are going to create more and more. And one way of strengthening our will is to rest assured that we are children of God. We are co-creators. We have a unique assignment on the universe that is only fulfilled by us. And if we don't do it, the universe will suffer. So everyone is important. We should never take for granted the fact that we are created by the loving and supreme intelligence of the universe, God. No matter the name we give, but it's a fact. Plus, Andrea Luiz is going to tell us that these thought forms that Kardec mentioned, Andrea Luiz validates and brings us more information. He says these living images that we create, they are substantial constructions in the realm of our soul. They are true construction, which will either free us or enslave us, related to our good or evil choices. Wow. This is very, very powerful. It's telling us the consequences of our thoughts. Andre Luis explains something that Kardec gave us the foundation for. He said in the book Genesis, if you think about killing someone, you're already doing it because you're creating the living images. I know it's scary. I know. But it's also beautiful because imagine if you think about helping others, you're already doing it. Of course, this is not it, but as Emmanuel says through Chico Xavier, thought is life. Thought is life. And Andre Luis explains the consequences when we create these living images. They are either going to free us or enslave us, because they are creating energy fields around us. So as we think positively, we create positive energy fields that are going to make us stronger to fulfill our missions in this life. Now, of course, thinking about immortality and reincarnation, many lives, you may ask, which is valid, what about thoughts of previous lives? This is an analogy that will potentially explain it. If you look at the sky during like a starry night, look at the stars brightly shining in the sky, an astronomer observing them may come to us and say, you know that star that you're seeing and shining brightly is dead already. And we may be asking, what? Dead? But I see the light of the star shining brightly. Yes, he explains, because before the star was dead, it was shining brightly its rays of light throughout the space of the universe, and it's traveling light years away. So it's still traveling through the universe, but the origin of it is dead. This is exactly what happens to the thoughts we created in previous lives. We created them. That very life is over, but the thoughts are still traveling in our minds, in the universe of our minds, in our mental space. Thus, the reasons why we suffer the consequences of those thoughts, the choices. For example, when we have diseases that we did not create in this life, they are consequences of those thought forms in previous lives. When we create good relationships or bad relationships, consequences of also those thoughts we created also in previous lives. Hopefully, this is a way to clarify it. And then Andre Luis empowers us more deeply, explaining that as we think, we create mental currents, and these mental currents are going to vitalize our chakras. Oh my Lord, this is very, very, very deep, because many people talk about chakra balancing, etc. And if we could just tell them that you can start balancing your chakras in your thoughts by creating beautiful thoughts, by creating thoughts of health, creating thoughts of care, of love, of mercy, of charity, of compassion, of kindness, then we really create balance. And he goes even deeper. He tells that these mental currents are going to vitalize all of our endocrine nuclei, which is related to the hormones. And they are going to make us connect to other minds as well. Minds of incarnates and discarnates. And then we are going to start connecting with others and resenting exactly what we created, because you never think alone. You think and you're already connecting. It's like a radio station. If you take a radio equipment, no matter which station you move, you're going to listen to something. It's inevitable. It's just like our minds. You cannot think something and have no consequence, no connection. You think, you connect. You think, you connect with other minds. You think, you connect with other minds, which can be discarnate or incarnated. Now, we're going to give a short break. Short, very short. When we come back, we have more. Hello, Jay. Hello, dear guests at Kardec Radio. We're going to give a short break. When we come back, you know you can ask questions, and you can also send your comments or suggestions. We're here live at Kardec Radio today talking about the physiology of our thoughts. A short break, and we'll be back with you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, André Louise emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want Spiritist books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelison Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
We are back, and we are back to discuss the very take of Spiritism on the physiology of our thoughts. As we were telling before the break, when we think, we create living images that will be boosted by our will, and they will actually create currents that will vitalize our chakras and will also make our connections with other minds. Thus, we start answering the very questions. If we think of fearful thoughts, will we attract negativity? Yes. Of course we will. Inevitably. It's impossible to be the reverse because we are creating the very particles of fear, which is already negativity, and they will attract negativity for the very reason that André Luiz explains to us. If I think, I co-create, and I co-create atomic particles, and those particles are going to be connected to other particles in the universe and make connections with other minds, and then we attract the very situations that we are most afraid of. That's why we tell you, if you like horror movies, don't watch them. You know why? Because when you watch those movies, you may not be afraid at first, but they are going to be archived in your deep subconscious. And then what happens? Andrea Louise explains to us later, when you are living a very difficult, moment in your life, those spirits who don't like us, they are going to play the very parts of those movies that we watched that are very scary. And you know why? Because they want us to vibrate fear. And when we vibrate fear, we are more vulnerable to them. Got it? So, everything against horror movies. They're not good. They do not help. Not only that, but violent movies too. Why we're saying this? Because Andrea Lewis talks about the fact that when we think, we are making connections. Even if we don't know, we are making connections with other minds. Minds of the beyond and minds of the incarnates as well. He talks about mental interaction, and he explains more that when we are reading a book, consulting a book, talking to someone, focusing our interest in some subject, contemplating nature or something, we are putting ourselves in immediate, spontaneous connection with incarnates or discarnates, the very ones that have like thoughts, like interests. This means if we like pornography, okay, some people think it's harmless. It's very harmful. Why? What kind of spirit likes, what kind of soul will like pornography? Very elevated? No. Very animalistic. More elevated spirits do not see the physical body, sensuality, sexuality in this way. So when we are here, let's say I have a computer, I'm by myself, and I'm watching, naked pictures or a porn movie. And I think, I'm by myself. No, you have lots of company around you. Lots of these spirits who also like it. And you know what's going to happen? They are going to depend on you to start. Because when you watch it, physiologically, science explains, it's creating a cascade of events in your body, releasing hormones, substances, and this is vitality. And the spirits who like pornography too, they like it also because when they connect with incarnates who like it, they start sucking our own energy. And then at the end we feel depleted, we feel tired. So our connections begin with our thoughts. And the reverse is true. Leon Denis, in the book Here and Hereafter, in one of the most beautiful passages of that book, he explains, "Dear reader," he says, as you are reading this, we are connected mind to mind, heart to heart, because we know we are destined to meet one day. And it's very true. When we're reading, we're connecting to the mind of the author, to that very thought frequency, to that current of thought. And Andrea Louise explains to us that there are two types of mental currents that we create with our thoughts, constructive and destructive. The constructive mental currents are the ones in which we're going to think beautiful things, we are going to be ennobled, and as we are ennobled, we are richer in imagination, mental power. And it creates beautiful, as he says, an asset of magnetic loads, mental currents that are going to vibrate around us and extend a field of wellness. So when we're thinking good things, we're not only helping ourselves, we're helping the universe. We're harmonizing others as well. No wonder when we meet people who are aligned with, their beautiful thoughts, we feel good around them. I will never forget when I met in person the Dalai Lama in 2000, and I think it was either 2006 or 2008 in Washington, D.C., in the neuroscience meeting. We had a meeting. All neuroscientists around the world were going to meet the Dalai Lama at the conference center there, the convention center. And I remember coming very close to him. Energy, his smile, he was vibrating life. Just like what I feel when I meet Divaldo Franco. He vibrates life. Why? Because he feels himself with positive thinking all the time. There is no time for negative comments or thoughts because it's not worthwhile, just like our Master Jesus taught us. But we can also create destructive mental currents. And Andrea Luiz explains, when the soul externalizes destructive mental thoughts, creating mental waves, it will attract forces of equivalent content, often failing in obsession. And he says, usually the soul falls in the traps of undesirable remorse, becoming an interpreter of unspeakable crimes. This is precisely what happens nowadays when we see people, for example, adolescents. People think out of the blue they took a gun and killed people. I will tell you, it wasn't out of the blue. They created one thought, other minds connected with them, and together they created this destructive mental current, and they became the very instruments of bigger forces who used them to fulfill what they were materializing together in their thoughts. Okay? So this is very, very clear. André Luiz is very, very clear when he explains this. And he tells us something even more. When we think or constantly talk about sick situations, we are creating destructive mental currents. There are people who use their friendships in this destructive way. And they think, oh, but they are my friends. I'm talking to them. I'm just, relieving my anguished heart. But please, friends are not only to talk about the bad things that happen in our lives. We are also to be together and enjoy a little bit of, the good things that happen in our lives. Count the blessings together. We have such a twisted way of thinking of friendship, right? We think friends are just for the bad times. Or it's the extreme opposite, just for the good times but in a crazy way. And André Luiz is saying, don't use your relationships to constantly be talking about sick situations, because you're going to be attract them, because you're creating a destructive mental current. Debauchery is also a way, says André Luiz, of creating mental currents. It's so interesting because in America we're so used to a type of humor that is so sarcastic, and people don't know that the sour and bitter waves that are created by sarcasm are creating destructive mental currents. We need to change the way we are humorous. Of course, he also adds that cruelty is also a way in which we create destructive mental currents. All right? And sometimes we are cruel and we don't think we are cruel. How are we cruel not knowing we're cruel? I'll give an example. Let's say our child at home is crying, and we don't think there is a reason for the child to cry. And then we say, come on, stop crying. That's cruel. That's cruelty. Why? Because we're not paying attention to the feelings of the child. If the child is crying, the child has a reason. Oh, but it's just a whim. Well, whether it's a whim or not, there's a reason. We're not going to simply dismiss. That's cruelty. We need to pay attention. We're not going to give way to whims, but we're going to manage those emotions, not putting them aside. Talking, understanding. No wonder Pestalozzi, the educator who educated Kardec, he actually said that education is a lot of work, but also solidarity. We need to be in solidarity with the ones we're educating. But we need to know here, as we're talking about creation of destructive mental currents, the fact that when we are creating them, Andre Luiz explains, we're immediately connecting to other minds and we're feeding each other. That's why sometimes it's so hard to get out of the loop of negative mental thoughts, because we're being fed by other negative minds. So where do we begin? By doing what Joana de Angelis recommended through Divaldo Franco. Simple. Each negative thought you substitute by a good thought. Very straightforward, isn't it? Very straightforward. And that's the very reason why Andre Luiz concludes that we are then mediums, because as we emit those thoughts, we attract the thoughts of others, and then we become reflectors of those thoughts. Then we become mediums. This is the concept of broad mediumship, in which we often think and we start feeling things like, man, I don't understand. I was just thinking about that, and suddenly, all of a sudden, I start feeling this, that, and the other. Because you're not alone. We're never alone. Even St. Paul or Paul the Apostle told we always have a cloud of witnesses, and it's so true. There is never a moment we're alone, because as we think constantly, and we do think constantly, we're connecting to other minds. So we need to do the mental coaching. This is really coaching. Nowadays, people talk about life coaching. It's great. But you know where we begin? In our thoughts. We need to create new thoughts and take the consequences of the creation of thoughts in previous lives. How? By creating beautiful thoughts today. You create a new vibratory field around you. You create a new current of connection. You know, we talk about, in the United States, we have Verizon network, and people talk about, what is in your network? Well, who is in your network? We're talking about, spiritually speaking, who is in your network? Those who have similar thoughts. What kind of thoughts do you have? You know, an exercise you can do, if you are not so sure, or even if you want to be 100% sure about the quality, write every day a list of 5 thoughts that you have. Study them. Just spend like 30 days doing this. And then go back. Do some statistics. How many positive thoughts have you had? How many negative thoughts have you had? Do the math, and you see where you need to change. We'll be surprised, because when we put it in paper, it's clearer. Sometimes we don't see it. We need to see it with our own eyes to be sure, because many people say, but I'm praying, my life doesn't change. But are you sure you're thinking positively? Because praying once a day or 1 million times a day, but thinking negative thoughts all the time is not going to help, because you are, at the end, neutralizing the prayerful efforts and the response to your prayers by thinking negatively. You need to start creating a list of positive thoughts every day. How do we begin it? By being grateful. Substitute, for example, let's say your spouse did something you didn't like. You immediately, instead of focusing on that, you think, but he or she is so loving, caring, helps me with this, is so such a good father, such a good mother, such a good employee or boss, etc. And then we counterbalance and start creating thoughts of positive around us. Think of our master and guide, Jesus. He's our model. Do you think he had negative thoughts? No. For each negative situation, he had a positive thing to say. Why? Because he was only thinking positive things all the time. He knew in the long run everyone progresses. So why am I going to focus on the bad that is so temporary? The negative is temporary because only one force is everlasting: goodness, love. And if we connect to it, if we allow the flow of those thoughts of the Creator to come through us, everything in our lives will just unfold. As André Luiz says, it's a matter of attunement, and we need to persevere in goodness by using our will. By using our will. He explains quite clearly, if we use, as he says, the lever of our will, we're going to handle all our mental currents more easily. So we're talking here about the concept of thought management. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. Thought management. Thought management. Thought management is something that is going to transform our lives. It's going to go deep and change everything. Next time we look at our child, let's say our child has a problem. Next time we look at the child, we don't think of the problem. We substitute by a beautiful thought. So pretty soon, we're going to look at the child. We're not going to see the problem anymore. We're just going to see the beauty, which is everlasting. The problem is short-lasting. Every problem, every shortcoming, everything ignorant in us is short-lasting. Only goodness is everlasting. Why focus on the bad? We're going to give one more break. And when we come back, we're going to tell you much more about what André Luiz calls agents of mental induction. We need to know what they are so we are less vulnerable, protecting ourselves. Many people ask this question: how can I protect myself? Can you give me like an energy field so I can protect myself? You're going to learn how we protect ourselves right after this break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Books of André Luiz. Through the hands of the most prolific medium of all times, Chico Xavier, the spirit doctor André Luiz wrote a series of books that unveil the mechanisms of life and life after life. From the best-selling novel No Solar, Our Home, to And Life Goes On, the reader will find illumination for a fulfilled life on Earth as well as immortal happiness. Check the many titles available at the international distributor, EDI CEI of America. Their website is www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Traveling to another country? Immigrating elsewhere? Prepare yourself by reading the book Among Brothers of Other Lands, in which several loving and wise spirits wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier and Waldo Vieira, telling all of us the tips and hints of a successful transition to a new land. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Do you want Spiritist books for your children? At Odyssey of America, You'll find a collection of them from the best-selling book Our Father, in which the spirit Mei Mei, through Chico Xavier, brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Eda Yuson Salis on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.edisayofamerica.com.
And now we return to our program.
Well, we're talking about how we protect ourselves. Who doesn't want to be protected? You know, it's interesting because André Luiz, in the very book we mentioned, Mechanisms of Mediumship, which is yet to be published in English, he explains to us that in this world, at the evolution that we are nowadays on the earth, it's like a forest in which we have different types of beings, okay? And it can be quite wild. So you need to protect yourself. How? By thinking positively. How do we create this aura that vibrates beautifully, brightly, positive thoughts? By creating positive thoughts. Protection is not something we acquire externally, okay? It's an inner thing. So let's say, realistically speaking, nowadays we are living in December and we're meeting lots of family, friends, and other people. Lots of get-togethers, parties, etc. And sometimes, you know, there will be a person you don't like or you're afraid of because of the negativity, etc. How do you protect yourself? By thinking positive about everything and everyone. Oh, no, really? Yes, I know it's hard. I will never forget talking to someone in a fraternal assistance moment about this very fact. You need to create beautiful thoughts about this person. And she replied, it's impossible. There's nothing positive about her. Said, you know, your life's not going to change if you don't start seeing the positive. If you're obsessively focused on the negative, you're opening destructive mental currents, and thus you're creating connections that are very dangerous for you and to your family members, because you'll be a prey of an obsessor. It's just like the parable that Jesus told us. You know, there was a Lord, he lent something to a servant, and then later the Lord asked for the return. But the servant said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to pay you. So the Lord was so merciful, he forgave him. It's the parable of the unmerciful servant. The minute this servant was released, when he was walking the streets, he found somebody who owed him money. So he grabbed the person by the collar and by the neck and was like, you have to pay me my money. And then the guards of the Lord watched him and said, Lord, you just forgave him, but he didn't forgive the ones who were, you know, in debt in regards to him. So the Lord said, bring him back. He brought him back and said, look, I forgave you, but you didn't, so now you're going to be in prison. Figuratively speaking, what did Jesus mean by it? What prison is this? The inner prison. The prison of lack of mercy, the lack of compassion, and it's energetically imprisoning. So if there are people in our lives whom we only have negative thoughts about, we need to start creating a list of positive things about those people. And that's the only and single way we're going to protect ourselves. The only way. There's no other way at all. At all, at all. That's also something that André Luiz explains to us. If we want to be more skillful managing our thoughts, we need to know that anything that attracts our attention becomes as he mentions, an inductive factor. I will repeat it. Anything, any target of our attention becomes an inductive factor. What does this mean? It means that if I pay attention to something, that thing is going to create a cascade of thoughts in my mind, thus creating mental currents and then making connections and then changing my life. So we need to pay attention. Don't take for granted the minutes you spend in your life. Don't spend your attention on things that are not positive, because you're suddenly going to create a negative mental current. The opposite is true. So he says, here is a list he gives us of agents of mental induction. He says, a conversation like we're having now. This conversation is creating thought forms, and they are vitalizing our chakras, which can be very healing. You see, healing doesn't begin externally. It's an inner thing. No wonder Jesus said, if you healed, your faith healed you. It wasn't him. He was an agent of that mental transformation, but it is within us the power to change it. He says, reading a book, a page, can actually start creating mental thought forms, mental currents, connections, contemplating a picture, like when we go to a museum, which can be very therapeutic if we go to museums that are positive, of course. Or the idea that turned to certain subject, an idea, an artistic show, a visit made or received, an advice, an opinion. Can you believe it? An advice and an opinion have the power of creating mental currents too. So we need to pay attention to the advices we give, to the opinions we emit, because they are going to become agents of mental induction in others too. We need to be very careful. We are responsible for the consequences, so we need to be very, very careful. And he says that our homes are the most powerful center of induction we know on earth. Our homes. And that's the reason why we talk a lot about Feng Shui, right? That ancient way of creating a beautiful vibratory field in our homes. But we forget that the best way of creating a beautiful field is in our thoughts. If I turn on the TV and watch things that are not positive, how am I home going to be creating positive mental currents? If I only talk about crimes and negativity in my home, complaining about the neighbors, talking bad about family and relatives, how is my home ever going to be a temple of positive mental induction? Never. And the reverse is true. So we need a lot of discipline. No wonder Emmanuel, the mentor of Chico Xavier, advised him, if you want to follow through the steps, you need discipline, discipline, discipline. We need to discipline ourselves. Sometimes Mentor Joseph comes to me and said, Vanessa, don't say what you're thinking right now. It's not going to help anybody. And I say, okay, I won't. Because then I will be responsible for what I'm creating in other people's minds too. We influence each other inevitably. So we need to be very careful. Responsible. I think the word responsibility is the best way to describe it. That's the reason why André Luiz talks about the use of discernment. He says discernment should therefore be used by us as the rudder of the mind. Think about it, a boat and the rudder giving direction, or sheep, right? A sheep and the rudder. It's like the mind. Discernment is the rudder. So We need to know what we're going to think. For many lifetimes, we thought indiscriminately, without, any discipline. In this life we are learning, we need to discipline ourselves from within, from our thoughts, because our thoughts really become words, and our words become actions. Our actions become our attitude, and the attitude will become character, and that is really true. Everything begins in the mind, and we're never alone. Well, the bottom line of it all is one major spiritual law that rules our lives. It's like gravity. This is mental gravity, the law of the mental field. Andre Lewis says that we will attract what we emit in our thoughts, and it's going to energize ourselves at each and every thought. So if you're feeling depleted, your depletion begins in your mind. If you're feeling your life is stuck, it's because you need to change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your life. A beautiful book and DVD that was written by Wayne Dyer. He relied upon the Tao by Lao Tzu, and it contains universal truths about the fact that we need to change our thoughts to change our lives, inevitably. And Spiritism explains why. Because as we create this emission, we attract like thoughts, and thus we are going to make connections, and our lives are going to be either easier, energized, flowing, happy, or the opposite. We all want the happy part of it, right? So let us create. We are co-creators. And we have a guidance model that taught us the very way to go. We're going to finalize this very conversation by giving you a beautiful, it's almost like a mantra, affirmations, five affirmations that can elevate our thoughts, by Joana de Angelis. Please write it down. Write it down. You know what I do? I keep this in a big banner in front of my computer every day. It's actually on top of it, above the computer. 5 items to elevate our thought. 5 affirmations. First one, she says, think constantly about this. Life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. 2, I was born to love. I was born to love. And again, I was born to love. 3, I live to serve. I live to serve. I live to serve. 4, there is a sun shining within me. There is a sun shining within me. And again, there is a sun shining within me. And the bad or evil that people do to me does not make me ill, but the evil that I do is the one that actually makes me ill. The evil that others do to me does not make me ill, but the evil that I do does make me ill. And once again, the evil that others do to me does not make me ill, but the evil that I do actually makes me ill. 5 affirmations. Life is beautiful. I was born to love. I live to serve. There is a sun shining within me, and the evil that others do to me does not make me ill, but the evil that I do is the one that actually makes me ill. She says that if we keep affirming these things in our minds in a constant basis, everything else is going to unfold. We're going to raise our vibrations, make better connections, starting with our guardian angel, listening more easily to the guardian angel, and thus unfolding, dear listener, a beautiful life. Are you feeling better? I do feel better too. I feel much better now after understanding the ins and outs of our thoughts. If you have any question and suggestion about this, though we're live, you can also send us an email at kardecradio.com. And right now, I will invite you for our closing moments, which is our prayer. How about prayer? Prayer is also a beautiful way of connecting to higher minds. How about that? Let us help one another, joining forces, dear listeners, no matter where you are in the world, no matter if you're listening to this on demand. Let us pray now. Loving and kind Mother, Father of our lives, we are rejoiced to learn we are co-creators. So much power you have given us, but you also have given us the tool to manage this power wisely. We thank you for sending these beautiful, beautiful minds who share with us the laws of your universe. Today especially, we're grateful for knowing about the law of our mental field, learning that we're responsible for the thoughts and the consequences of our thoughts. And right now, we join our hearts and our minds to ask for healing and for help to all those in this world, on the earth, who are having a hard time changing their mental frequency. May they receive this shower of blessings as agents of mental induction, so they feel and think that they are your children, that life is beautiful, that they also were reborn to love, they live to serve, that there is a sun shining within them, and that the evil that others do to them does not make them ill, but the evil that they do actually does make them ill. May they feel the blessings and begin a new life, begin anew each and every day. Thank you, dear Lord, for this and much more, and so be it. Dear listener, it's very happy to feel this vibration. We are happy that you're here with us, and we are very grateful to all those who have been sending their comments, suggestions, and also to those who have been sending donations, so we can keep running these programs in greater fashion to nourish the souls throughout the planet Earth. We are going to wrap up the program now, reminding you that next week, Bernadette Leal is going to be here hosting the program. She's going to interview Sharon Corners, who is a reverend, and much more. She's going to talk about how we make changes that change our lives. It's everything to do with what we're discussing here, but she's going to tell us much more. We hope you come back. And tomorrow we have Spiritist Awareness at 8 p.m. Our dear Carla Smith is going to be broadcasting it for us. And on Wednesday, Mac Mello is broadcasting his program on No Solar with Francisca Kranz. And on Thursday, Vanessa Childs from Seattle is streaming to you another beautiful Spiritist talk. This and much more here at Kardec Radio for you, nourishing your soul every day. Thank you, dear listener. We'll talk to you in a week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.